So today we're doing VOD reviews. It's been a long time since I've done these because they take up a lot of time and they're exhausting, frankly. But I thought that we'd got now a couple of weeks since the grand finals. It might be an opportunity to go back now with a fresher mindset and look at it. I do this for a few of my casts. Less and less in the quarantine season, I'll be honest with you. But this is definitely one I want to have a look at. We want to be fairly nitpicky. It's only fair. I nitpick people when I VOD review them. I should apply that same standard to myself. In fact, it'll likely be a much tougher standard. You can probably understand why. First, we can talk about everything surrounding this game, the context, the finals, and the setup. So, after seeing League of Legends Worlds, I had a feeling that we would also attempt something of a virtual nature, and I was right. The powers that be over at the league wanted to really make it special, so yes, so we did. We tried to, at least anyway. So the virtual setup required, well, it didn't require this necessarily, but basically we were sent out 4 gigantic Pelican cases, and we were tasked, myself, Matt, the desk, were tasked with unpacking everything and setting it up. This included like a backdrop, there were 5 lights with diffusers, there were 2 tablets, there was a camera, but strapped to the camera was obviously, there was a teleprompter on the front, the camera itself, a Focusrite, so an audio mixer, and it's called a Nook, but like a Raspberry Pi, like a mini PC, and like a wireless router, or like a router, a switch, were all strapped to the camera. So it's this gigantic monstrosity that we sort of set up and had to find the framing right. And basically, the guys would team view it into that computer, the screen with which we could see, because the teleprompter was hooked up to the computer. So very complicated, but basically we had to, get a really quality green screen look. And obviously, not a lot of us had space. I was lucky I had a guest room to work with. But like Matt was just crammed in there. And, but this year I'm quite proud of all the casters because we had to be casters. We had to be broadcast engineers. We had to be makeup artists, all that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a lot of expectation. But I think we delivered. The grand finals week was pretty insane. I mean, we kind of tried to get ahead of things and set our sleep schedule. But I had a 9 a.m. media day with Matt and Zoe, but she was in Switzerland. It wasn't too bad. So I actually couldn't start setting my sleep schedule until like a day or two before the first grand finals cast. So it had to happen really quickly. We got there, but yeah, it was insane. Like I didn't see the sun for quite a few days. The things that we do to try and make a broadcast happen. So what you're going to see here in the broadcast is that I'm standing in my guest room surrounded by shit. All this equipment. I have like this much room because like the camera is set back from me a fair way. We had to like get our cameras the same distance from us. So I only actually had like this much room before my arms started getting cut off out of the green screen because I couldn't take a wider shot because I didn't have a back wall wide enough to catch the whole green screen in. So I was sort of like, I had to be really mindful not to gesticulate too heavily out of frame or anything like that. Anyway, so as we go through this cast, if you're not familiar with it, basically I'm going to stop it fairly frequently and comment and maybe say things I could have done better or try and highlight some things that I thought maybe worked well. If the audio is too low, let me know. We can adjust it. We're going to be here for a while. So strap yourselves in.
A championship in the world of Overwatch is more than just a climb.
So we're going straight in. This is a prepared line, I think. I thought it up, I'd say 30 seconds before we went live. It's nothing complicated. It's just, a way. I don't want to be like, welcome everybody. Like you cannot start a grand final with a generic welcome. It's not okay.
A championship in the world of Overwatch is more than just a climb. It's an arduous ascent, a gauntlet fraught with challenge, trial, and tribulation.
I almost forgot what I was going to say after arduous.
And tonight here at the Grand Finals presented by IBM, we will crown our Overwatch League champion for 2020.
You can see my voice sounds a little scuffed because it is. It's 6 a.m. and like, my voice just feels crap. My throat just feels crappy. I've just smashed an energy drink down. I'm feeling a little dehydrated. Not as bad as the night before, mind you, but a little cotton-mouthy. Anyway, like, no one knows this, but I actually went to YouTube, found a 1-hour loop of stadium sounds and pumped it into my headset. so that when I closed my eyes, I at least felt like I was in the Wells Fargo or something, because this was the kind of game that required a certain amount of gravitas that was just really hard to find throughout the year, like at home in my office. So I had to find some way. I spent all of the day sort of just, I tweeted, some a little bit emotional stuff, like kind of wolf level emotion in my tweet, like, oh, this means a lot to me, but it did. But it was important, right? So I spent a lot of the day sort of preparing myself, and this sort of the stadium sound through my headset, so you could feel like I was actually in an arena. It wasn't bad. It kind of helped, but that's why you see here that I'm really sort of stretching things out a little more.
I am Mitch Leslie. It is my pleasure to be joined here by Matthew Morello, as always, to bring you our final match in our gauntlet here, and there'll be one winner as the smoke clears, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, how do I had a little bit of difficulty explaining the grand finals inside the grand finals over the course of this, because obviously the event, it's called the grand finals, right? The only other event that I've had like this was actually the World of Tanks World Finals. It was called the Grand Finals, which is a thing. So like, I think that was ad lib, and I didn't quite know how to properly describe it. So, yes, the IBM sponsorship we found out not long beforehand, and obviously this is it's like a presenting sponsor. So when you have a presenting sponsor or someone that when I'm told by production that they are very involved, and this is a big sponsorship, every time we say the grand finals, we're told to say presented by IBM. It's the same as every time I say player of the match, it's followed by presented by Xfinity. So these are the things that you want to try and I don't want to make it sound like repetitive all the time, but you have to say that every time. People meme about it, but that's what was sold to the sponsor. So you just have to say it.
The run we've had to get here. It is the San Francisco Shock yet again, and then the Seoul Dynasty, who even coming into this, they were a dark horse, a long shot. A lot of people are kind of talking about this is maybe like a two-horse race with the Shock in the Shanghai Dragons, but Seoul Dynasty has looked so good throughout the grand finals presented by IBM that they have a realistic shot here.
So obviously, maybe in this case, we're spending much more time, sort of looking at the camera than each other, because it felt weird. I was on a Skype call or a Microsoft Teams call or something to Matt there, but we had to adjust pretty quickly to the storyline of Seoul Dynasty, because obviously there was always a chance that they upset, the Shanghai Dragons, because the APAC is just that kind of crazy region. But we had to be pretty glued to these games, and I'll be honest, at the end of the Shanghai Seoul game, I was struggling. I was falling asleep. I was pretty tired, but I tried to absorb it.
Absolutely, and it's been a climb for both of these teams to get to this game. Of course, our final four teams are stacked with talent. The Seoul Dynasty went up against the San Francisco Shock.
So I know this is on screen, but I have to look down into the left to see it. Matt does not have this screen. So Matt doesn't have a program monitor set up, usually because he's not, referring to these graphics until I do in most cases. But I've had to rig together a setup that I have my live feedback, I have the observer feed, and then this. Now my program monitor is a little delayed, but yeah, I'm looking down and I can't refer to it the second it comes on screen because I don't know what it has.
Shock early on, Matthew, and it was close. San Francisco just staved off a reverse sweep, but the Dynasty fought through the lower bracket in a Cinderella story unlike any other, and a victory against familiar rivals and favorites from the APAC region, the Shanghai Dragons too.
A lot of this stuff, if you've got experience casting, you probably know this is off the cuff. I mean, I'm just trying to rehash things. I've thought about it a lot over the last few days and gone, oh man, it's crazy how this happened. But when this stuff comes up, this is obviously just really important as an establisher. Play-by-play caster normally handles a lot of the overarching storylines, and then my color caster will be able to come in and flesh them out a little more
to get them here.
Yeah, no, once Seoul
it is
Dynasty,
very Matt Drew.
So they
yep.
lose those first two matches, the maps to the San Francisco Shock. They end up making it a series, forcing a game 5. From that moment on, they've been really strong. I know they make quick work of the Philadelphia Fusion. The match against the Shanghai Dragons is close, but they pull it out in the end. Now they get themselves a rematch with San Francisco, where San Francisco just looking to repeat yet again. I know they were our champions last year. We all knew they were going to be a very strong team throughout the year, but we also know how difficult it is.
And you're sat here as an Overwatch fan, like, you know, shit, I know all of this stuff already. It's like, yeah, well, it's not for you per se. You know, this is just stuff that we have to say. It's really important that we establish this, especially for people that only drop in every now and then. So yeah, for us, even for me and Matt, we're thinking, I mean, this is so like, I mean, this is almost assumed knowledge at this point. Everybody gets it, but you know, we have to, you know, really want to set the scene here properly.
It is to repeat. To see them back here in the finals is tremendous.
Yeah, we've seen depth.
I hate how my microphone sounds here because I'm using I'm using a Focusrite Scarlett, which is an audio mixer, but it doesn't actually give me, there's no sliders on there. I don't have nearly as much control over level and EQ like a Go XLR. Now, I'm not sponsored by TC Helicon, but that piece of gear made me sound a million times better over the course of this season because I could apply my own compression. I could set my EQ bands as much as I wanted. I know it's expensive. I know a bunch of white guys doing crappy podcasts. I've just bought a shit ton of them, but it was very handy. Double the price? Yeah, it's been scalped like crazy. I got lucky. I actually got it from before COVID hit, but that's what I used all of this year. And, you know, I mean, I got to mess around with the sound effects, but more importantly, I found it was better than a lot of these like high-end, you know, high-end quote unquote cars like the, you know, because it has faders on there. You know, they're motorized. Anyway, I don't like how my mic sounded. Of course I trust our audio guys to sort of QC my audio on their end. But the thing is, if I'm clipping in my own ears or I don't like how I sound, it tilts me and throws me off. We actually had a bit of back and forth during the season because I was like, guys, can I please apply some compression on my end instead of giving you clean audio because I am live monitoring my voice. That means that as I speak, I'm doing it right now as well. That's what the Go XLR allows you to do. It's also very standard in the broadcasting industry. As I speak, I hear myself with no delay. So I'm not being speech jammed. Every time I sit at this PC and use this mic, I can hear myself in like being fed back into my own ears. It's really important for me because over the chaos, if there's noise or anything like that, I need to know how my voice sounds, and it actually helps me preserve it too. So I'm not, you never know when like someone's talking to you and you've got headphones on and you're just yelling at them. You don't realize how loud you are. Well, live monitoring can help with that a lot. It's side tone for those that aren't familiar with it, or yes, live mic monitoring. But a lot of people, like, I never used it until I started broadcasting. I was like, God, this is so good.
We've seen resilience, we've seen innovation from a roster that's been challenged with multiple different conditions. We started out this season at homestands, at live events, the crowd pulsing around them. Then we moved, of course, to an online setting.
Thank you very much, Dark Unicorn.
Came into effect. Week by week, San Francisco had to make changes in order to stay at the top. And after a slower start to the season, they quickly regained their footing as a championship contender.
Yeah, and you can see how much they've done within the Overwatch.
Bro, I went back and I watched so many Shanghai and Seoul games, and none of it held me because APAC was chaotic and hero pools were a thing, you know. Because I'll be honest with you, chat, I didn't watch all of the APAC Overwatch League. I just didn't. Because I just didn't want to be up that late and et cetera, et cetera. But so I watched so much, and chat, it was just. Oh, it didn't help me a lot. It allowed me to like highlight some of my favorite moments and players and individuals, but like none of the stats, none of the plays. The only time it helped was if I was being anecdotal, like, oh, I remember Void, you know, getting this 5K, but you know, no one cares. Sorry, like it's not relevant to this game, especially in the world of hero pools, chat. I know there are a lot of people in Overwatch who love to keep pointing back, like, remember back in I don't know, the AlphaCast Invitational or Apex or IM Gyeonghis, like. Different game, different format, different rules, different players. You know, I appreciate a good appeal to antiquity fallacy, but here it didn't help me at all. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm gonna give you a hard truth, chat. Does my close-up work? Yes. Chat. If you're the kind of person that wants to hear casters throw back to the old days, that's only because you were there and you want to be reminded how hardcore you are. That's the only reason. The only reason you want to be told something you already know is so you feel smart. Anyway.
League thus far. It's a coaching staff which knows their players extremely well. They always put them in a great position to succeed, and you see the culture that this team has built. It is a winning one.
And it demonstrates itself in the results. You can see them right there. But they are going up against previous champions as well. Profit and Gesture. What an incredible story. A throwback to...
Okay, I stand this storyline. The Profit and Gesture, like Super Saiyan playoff storyline, I'm about it.
2018, where these two players came alive on a team that people thought had a chance but was not a front runner. They just dominated, and they're doing it here again.
Especially with Seoul Dynasty, London Spitfire in the past, they left you wanting more. Where is this playoff Profit and Gesture in the regular season? I think the fans will take this version of it, though, at the end of the day. They always turn up in playoff time. They have been on fire since that.
I think this is a really important storyline, like, because, I mean, it's fortuitous timing for Gesture, who obviously was allowed to shine on Roadhog, which is obviously a tank. This is why people play. It's an ego tank, but it's important to have right now. Profit had an incredible season in general. Like, the whole season he played, he just looked incredibly good. But I think, you know, we definitely got excited about the narrative of, you know, previous champions coming back to roost, and they turned up.
And Gesture on the Roadhog has made a huge difference, you know, just going around on these flanks, you know, putting pressure on the opponent's DPS. We know what Profit can do. He can play everything at the highest level.
Of course, Gesture in a position now where it's much more than just making space that's on his plate. He needs to get those kills, and so far, so good.
I want to set the it's almost like a win condition that I'm setting before the game starts. You know what I mean? It's like, Gesture, your boy, this is what his focus needs to be. So I can already kind of set up for everybody what is really, sorry, I'm playing with my autofocus here. What is really important for him? What you should already be looking out for, because it's a change up in the way we evaluate a main tank who's playing. The Roadhog is vastly different from the main. Like, it's not just making space anymore. Zoning ults, like, no. Now you need to be getting kills. Like, how do you evaluate a Roadhog's effectiveness? Is it hook percentage? Not really, because when we put Gesture and Super side by side, or, you know, Gesture and maybe other opponents, it was like, Gesture has lower hook accuracy, but way more final blows. He's using it off cooldown. So there are a lot of stats about Roadhog especially that don't really tell us the whole story. And we had to sort of react to that on the run and you know, think about how heuristic for evaluating a main tank that now is actually called up to be a damage dealer and someone who finds picks and doesn't just make plays. It's far less a spatial responsibility now than it is a numerical one to get involved and to be accurate. No one gives a shit about Reinhardt's hammer accuracy. It was more about what he could do with his shield. He's positioning. Yeah, well, Roadhog's a little bit different. Now you got to flank. You got to go for solo kills. Everything changes.
All-time ranks. Profit is #1 in hero damage and #1 in eliminations, and a paltry second in final blows. This is the pedigree of
he is
a
just
legend
maybe the
of
great.
the
He's still
game.
maybe the greatest.
It really is no one like Profit, and the fact that he's been able to, you know, show up and get this team to where they are now, it's again been a story of coming alive in the playoffs. I think coming into the playoffs, Matt, the Dynasty were 15 wins, 16 losses, right? They had a very tough bracket to play through in the APAC region, but again,
I mean, bracket, league, whatever. The point is, I mean, I as much as I think the argument of saying like APAC or NA is better than the other, I think that it was like a higher concentration of really tough teams in APAC, whereas in NA you had a couple of walkovers. I think that's I think we can agree. That's where I can come to the middle ground with the Wolves of the world, you know.
They fire up in a perfect meta, perfectly suited to them.
And what I think's so impressive about Profit is a lot of the time the opponents are trying to game plan around him, right? Or just kind of, they know he's going to be a big difference maker. How do we stop Profit? How do we stop Profit? And he's still able to put up these types of numbers. It's just tremendous. I think if he were able to win...
The Angela Merkel pose. What do I do with my hands? I can't put them on the table. It's not even real, chat.
Today, I know if the Seoul Dynasty can pull this off, you know, he puts himself right at the top of the ladder in terms of Overwatch players all time.
Yeah, it's a very short list, Matt, of individuals that have hoisted 2 Overwatch League Championship trophies.
Yes, at that point, 0.
But the Dynasty
Thanks,
are
Mitch.
looking to make it happen, and at the helm are legends of yesteryear. So make some noise, we'll get excited, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our arena, the Seoul Dynasty.
So I have a producer in my ear, and they're saying, now introduce the team. And like, they want it to be a big, strong, you know, feel, but I don't hear anything. So I have to just like hear the roar of the crowd and close my eyes and think about those epic walkouts we had. It's actually kind of fire. I never heard this, by the way, chat. I never heard this sound because I don't get sound. I can see what's going on, but if I turn the sound up on my program monitor, I hear myself 3 seconds after I speak. So I have to keep it turned off. I cannot hear. So I can't, unlike before, I cannot vibe with the music. And I have used the music liberally to sort of inform my, I don't know, style or my energy level.
I still think, even with their performances, come into this match as the underdog. But you have the championship experience of Prophet and Gesture. You also have Bedosian on this team as well, not in the lineup to start things off today. You look at some of these other players that we don't talk about that often. You know, Marvel, right? Tremendous on like the Sigma. He was really like standout last year. And this year, it's always been like weird because Marvel and Gesture are both main tanks, but they play them a lot together. They've kind of put Marvel in a position where he plays some diva.
I mean, I guess, yeah, we saw him with Michelle, but obviously Marvel has plays like this filthy, nasty list of flex tanks.
And then a player who was on fire in the playoffs comes into the Final Four and really plays well is Fitz. He's not like the big kind of household name that you would kind of compare to. Fitz is a tremendous Widowmaker player, though.
Actually,
he's going to be a big difference today for Seoul Dynasty.
I mean, he obviously took the role on this roster that maybe Fletter occupied prior and has looked very good in a meta that's really conducive to those hit scan picks.
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, not a strong point because the meta is completely different, but, you know. I think of Fletter's big moments as Widowmaker, and then I've seen Fitz did some filthy things. That was kind of where I was.
But across the aisle on the other side of the arena is a team that is forged from hunger. They're looking to make it 2 championships in a row. It is the San Francisco Shock.
Oh, yep, the classic.
And last year, the San Francisco Shock are so dominant. But I think if they're able to pull this off today, it is actually more impressive than what they did all last season. With all the obstacles in their way, with how the season has gone, how much change there's been, I feel like weathering that storm and winning here today.
That stinger just feels like sounds like home.
Even more impressive, more impactful than what they did last year.
And I mean, maybe no surprises to see this roster. It's a deep roster, many top-tier players sitting on the bench, but it will be Arns and Striker to come in at DPS here for this first map. No surprise, obviously, Matt, it is the control maps. And Super, again, features in the starting lineup alongside Smurf.
Yeah, they did this against the...
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that the Shock's resume kind of speaks for itself a little bit. Me and Matt wanted to spend a little bit more time on the Seoul Dynasty, but we got plenty of time for both teams because this is a final, right? Normally, sometimes off the top of the show, you'll see that we go straight in pretty quickly. You know, because the lady sat next to me likes to move through a lot of those sort of regular season matches. But stuff like this, let it breathe. Because you look, even though the game hasn't happened yet, it's a great chance to like celebrate these players, the season they've had. No one's going home yet, but you know, I feel like that we're already paying off the game before it happens, which in the case of all the 4-0s we've had in the past can seem kind of counterintuitive, but we do it anyway, don't we?
The Seoul Dynasty, when they played the other day, is how Ans comes out and looks, because Fitz was really starting to get the better of him in the series a few days ago in the second half. If you kind of get that performance from Fitz again, the Shock could be in trouble early, but we know what Ans is capable of. Rookie player comes in, dominates on the hit scan heroes, the long range ones like the Ashe, the Widowmaker. He's got to come up big here early on.
The head-to-head, Ants versus Fitz, Striker versus Prophet. You can't ask for much more. 2 incredible Wrecking Ball players across these 2 rosters in Smurf and Marvel, and you have the recipe for an absolute barn burner of...
I could talk about every player, but we didn't have much time, right? You could literally go down the list, but some of them you just have to... let him go.
Match, ladies and gentlemen. And here's that T-Mobile Skybox connecting fans.
I couldn't hear this. I should have piped this into my headset because actually crowd sounds. It's so cool.
Across the world from coast to coast. Everyone joining us in our excitement for what promises to be one of the best matches of Overwatch we have seen. There's a legacy amount of grand finals in the Overwatch League being a little bit one-sided, but this year, no one expects a result like that.
No, we've had some one-sided matches, getting up to this point, right, with some of the Philadelphia Fusion ones, but this one you expect to
All right,
be
chat,
one
let's
that
go, let's
could go the distance. It is that type of match. It is a underdog team who is hitting their peak right now versus your defending champions. The first map in the set will be Oasis. As we jump into game, I expect both teams to flex the Roadhog early and often. That's why you see Super in the game right now. Super probably will play. This gives them the opportunity to play stuff like the Hog with the Wrecking Ball. They can play Hog with Sigma as well for San Francisco.
Two players, Gesture and Super. No shortage of bravado between the two of them, and that's why Roadhog is a perfect pick. It's a tank that wants to function like a damage dealer, making individual plays, flanking, and trying to find those all-important picks.
I just like... I'm sure you have your own opinions on who could be better for this, but like for me, it's really hard to think of like who I would rather see in like this sort of this Chad main tank match off than Gesture and Super, right? And the way that they both play. Super, we might have it. Look, we're not really looking at gameplay super closely here, but there might be a couple of moments where we can appreciate just what we see from these two.
The San Francisco Shockmat have staved off 3 potential reverse sweeps over the course of the playoffs, and they hope to not have to get to that point. But the Dynasty are hungry. They want to set this up now in their favor. And we're into Oasis, ladies and gentlemen. It'll actually be Marvel on the Sigma here, or as Super Smurf, it's going to be Hog and Ball.
Yeah, so I love the Sigma versus Ball sort of pick here. You can already see that Smurf's looking for something.
I think you have the Sigma in play to help a little bit with the Tracer.
Now, we're not staffed for personalities. We're just staffed for the bandwidth to bring them all out adequately.
It's going to come out from Striker. So we saw how Striker was able to deal with Fleta, our Overwatch League MVP, in the Tracer head-to-head.
So as you heard, I kind of made a little bit of a song and dance about the match starting, like it's all on the line. It's all they're playing for all the marbles. Something at least to, we really want to try and whet the appetite of the enemy teams, and we bring it down, right? Matt is, discussing a little bit some of the compositional differences, which are quite compelling when you think about it, because we have the classic. The North America versus sort of APAC, the Zen versus the Ana. Obviously, there's like a ton to unpack there, right? San Francisco has a Discord orb. Wow, that must be hard for Roadhog to stand out in the open, right? I mean, on the other side, Creative has Biotic Grenade. Creative absolutely cracked out of his mind with some of these Biotic Grenades, right? They offer different things. They both shut down Roadhog, albeit in different fashions, right? And I mean, I'm sure the debate has raged over which is better. I also think like we want to talk about the displacement factor that Smurf provides, whereas Marvel has a little bit more control and is more adequate at dealing with flankers. Maybe that makes it a little bit harder for Striker to do his thing. And then of course the Hanzo versus the Tracer there. So there's a ton of difference in these compositions, and hopefully we get a chance to sort of dive into it. But these rounds are short. There's so much to talk about.
This though, profit on the Hanzo. You can definitely take out Striker.
So obviously the first kill happens. We're still talking about the compositional differences. Now, that's not a big deal. You guys can see that a kill happens. So I'm not exactly waiting for Matt to throw it back. The way these compositions work as well, sometimes like the one pick, it can be a very short fight. Sometimes they can be unbelievably long, like Tony Overwatch. So I'm just waiting for him to throw it back to me. There's no hurry. We know it's a first to 4 series, right?
Gets a little bit too close. That'll be Fitz taking out Smurf early on as Smurf was going in trying.
So Supreme Judge Fudge in the chat says, on stream, Super talked about how he thinks they got the meta wrong and they only did as well as they did because Violet is an absolute nut on Zen. I can believe it. He was my pick for MVP in the first half of the series anyway.
And to disrupt, it looks like he actually got a hit with a sleep dart there, and they're able to deal with him.
So we see a creative assist there. We saw that it was Smurf that was sleeping there. In fairness, there's no Orb of Discord on the side of the Dynasty, but they burst him down awfully quickly. Of course, the hook is free.
Creative on that Ana pick. It's a very Asia-styled.
I mean, like, I want to point out the stylistic differences between the regions that are manifesting here, because it's a big deal, and it informs the way the teams play. So we're already setting up a theme, me and Matt, of like a clash of different styles. And the more that we can refer back to that, or the more importantly, that we can reinforce this narrative. Look, I don't think this is a forced narrative. It exists. It's there. We're highlighting it. Whether it's forced or not really depends on how much we try and circle back and refer to it.
Pick in that flex support role, and he has been terrorizing his opponents so far. And even with how durable Wrecking Ball is, a Sleep Dart makes him too vulnerable. And
so point was captured. I don't think that was intentional. I think it was actually Smurf pile driving and hit the ground a little later than he wanted to. So weird fight now with San Francisco. If they try and fight, if they have a prolonged engagement, they probably lose out anyway to the Ana, and they're going to be giving away percentage.
Goal start with control of the point. Jester tries to go for a hook on Smurf, but takes a lot of damage to pay for his hubris. And the Shock pushing onto the point here, so much so that the Dynasty have to play around Marvel's shield.
So I just want to mention that, like, if I can establish Marvel's shield for the viewer as like a point of reference, perhaps, or where they should expect much of the action to come from, then maybe it'll make it easier to pass out the way that this fight goes, because you have like a North Star, so to speak. Obviously, with the pressure that got applied to Gesture early, they need to come forward with that shield. But you see how low the shield is now, and Smurf has just been stunned, so looks like an accretion.
Yeah, they just need to back up Seoul Dynasty.
But I give it to Matt because I know that these teams are probably like, I am expecting San Francisco to maybe wait for to have everyone in proper fighting form.
They heal up the tanks. They were both a little bit low. Now they can get back on and contest. As you do have a nano boost in play, they're going to throw it on a Gesture, and look at this. Just the ability that he can do here, Mitch.
Oh my!
He's going to get a hook here on a super, but just the threat of him with the nano boost, and they know that his hook.
The ability that he can do here. I mean, I'm not here to talk about Matt's casting, but the point he's trying to make is the threat that that Gesture can generate.
Hook is active. They have to get away from the point. They're still not able to get super out in time.
Now Smurf kills Prophet, but we just can't like. This is going to happen a lot off camera because of where Smurf is going to be on the map. Like, he's rarely, late in a fight, he's rarely going to be at the epicenter of the action because he's probably killing someone on a weird flank or knocking someone off the high ground. No, I'm not going to roast Matt. That's not fair. I don't like roasting other casters. I mean, maybe I'll make an exception for Matt.
Striker brought back into the fight. There as Prophet is knocked into the drink, but Gesture once more is looking for... Oh.
So that Prophet kill is... I think I said, what did I say? Knocked into the drink?
Get away from the point.
Right, I mean...
Still
is that even true?
Super out in
yes.
Time.
So, I mean, I got lucky. Like, looking at the... I read the kill feed for that one. So, I had to. I mean, I'm looking at a Roadhog. So...
Striker brought back into the fight. There as Prophet is knocked into the drink. But
I just do try and remind people when there are resurrects here.
Gesture once more is looking for a way to forge his own fortune. Flanks.
I guess I'm going to have to find a few different ways of saying Gesture is looking for a hook to get a kill. It could be an impact death. I mean, like it's, yeah, I mean, I didn't actually have the falling off thing. So that's a good example of me sort of reading the kill feed, but doing it too quickly. It's not environmental kill. Otherwise there would be an icon there, right? A very small thing, but like this is the stuff that I don't really want to be doing. That's right. Yes, you are correct, chap.
Looks for a hook, but he finds a whole hog on.
So, I mean, there is definitely one sense of, yeah, like if you're gonna refer to the kill feed, that's fine. Just don't do it in the middle of like a full team fight. Don't just go X killed Y, Y killed Z, A killed B. But you know, situations like that, I had to read the kill feed quickly and then flick back to what I was doing, and there's an error already. So expect to see plenty of those, by the way. That's why I'm doing this.
Towards Smurf there. Another fight that begins with San Francisco down a player. Fitz gets the drop on towards Arndt here. Oh, when he comes up second best, the Striker accosts him from behind. Marvel's hit with a Discord Orb on the point, and the Transcendence there keeps the Shock topped up going into this fight. Creating false foul of a headshot from Violent. Striker has a pulse bomb that he doesn't need.
So, again, a lot of these kills, right, are fairly rudimentary, but I'm never referring to them in the same way. There was a bit of speed up there, I think, as the Discord Orb was sort of applied, but that kind of pace, I don't want to stay at that pace for too long. Otherwise, it just becomes it's just bad. It's just bad, chat.
To use.
And San Francisco flips the point.
So I was, and the reason why I recovered there, if you hear like, I think Striker has a pulse bomb he doesn't need to use. I began to talk about a pulse bomb and then realized there was no need for it. But I mean, it's not the best commentary in that moment, but it was a quick adaptation I had to make.
Popped up going into this fight, creating false foul of a headshot from Violent. Striker has a pulse bomb that he doesn't need to use.
Now, yeah, if I could, I mean, I think this is okay. It's less important. What probably was more important was like the kill on Gesture on point, Striker getting the flank on the high ground.
And San Francisco flips the point back. They do end up giving up 55%, but they do it with really, it's a Bob early on from Ants, and then the Transcendence to keep the tanks alive on the point when Seoul Dynasty ends up using their Bob. So limited investment there from the San Francisco Shock, and they're able to flip the point back. So Valkyrie coming into this next fight, you'll have a Pulse Bomb striker, so good at landing these into.
Something that I feel like I don't see enough from color casters is that kind of succinct recapping of the fight. Some color casters don't do it at all. And some that do spend too long on it. But Matt there shows a good example of just trying to remind you what was important there. The most important part of the whole point, summarized, is that it was a really just a very small investment by San Francisco, and we have very slanted alt charges now, and which can impact the win condition of some of these fights.
To the back line, you win another fight for cheap here for San Francisco. You're going to get above the percentage that Seoul Dynasty has.
So I see, at this moment, I see the flank happening, right? So I have to be ready to lower my voice and build some suspense into this, but I get an unexpected camera transition here from our observers who want to show presumably maybe Fitz and Marvel, who's coming up on a gravitic flux. So I have to adapt to this.
Final blows already for Striker, living up to the hype provided for him.
But as you can see, I started mentioning Striker, but now the way this meta works is if Violet gets killed across the map, there's probably a res here, right? You see where Striker's Violet has died sort of up here, right? There's always the question of how do they protect it because they're not running D.Va right now. So I need to very quickly pivot now to this kill, and if there is any consequence, and then I'll have to be ready to pivot to Prophet, who probably will try and keep an eye on the Mercy resing here.
Violet goes down early. It's a damage boost from Fitz that gets him across the line.
So Violet comes back, but look, you see Prophet is here, where my cursor is. So in my head, I was preparing to sort of refer to the fact that he would definitely try and capitalize, and he probably will. By the way, this is what Prophet did constantly to Funny Astro. So there are multiple different threads. And I have to just kind of ride along with everyone I kind of get given. I don't have a top-down view. I don't have enough screens. I don't have enough screens. Yeah, it's just, no, I don't. No.
Has to be a resurrect from Moth. He's able to do it safely. Striker definitely.
So I just mentioned that Moth's able to do it safely there because we know that Prophet was looking for him. But yeah, what I'm getting given here is Striker looking for something, but he sort of recalled out of that situation.
Dodges the sleep dart coming at him from Creative and still.
So we flick away as soon as Striker goes for another push because, as expected, Prophet tries to mess with the Resurrect here. Moth pops Valk and probably tries to 1v1 him. But right now, I'm not looking here at all. I'm looking right. I'm looking here. And it's possible, like Striker has a pulse bomb here. Yeah, I'm looking here. That's what I sort of expect the action is. But there might be something like quite interesting happening over here. Anyway.
Has that pulse bomb ready to go, but Violet again falls. There's the trade. Moth goes for the blast.
So he actually gets the blasty kill, but at the exact same time, Striker finally fucking lets go of this pulse bomb. Finally. So now we have like two in their own right. Both of these are important kills, right? This may be even more so because Moth just valked and went and killed Prophet. It's a huge kill because obviously, Moth, his res gets interrupted, but crucially, he gets a trade for his Zen. And he is still in Valk and still able to very quickly go and heal someone else. It's important.
He gets the better of Prophet, and Gesture falls. Super finds a headshot with a scrap gun, and there's that damage boost to boot.
Now, the reason why I say with a scrap gun there, because I don't want to say it's a Roadhog killing a Roadhog every time. You can see it, right? But like, maybe if you're just not looking at the kill feed, like, maybe you just need to be reminded. I try and add a little bit more context than just super kills Gesture. There was like a lot going on here, right? Looks like damage boost, maybe even just blast damage. Anyway.
All the resources required, given the super to get that big.
Now, yeah. So I mentioned all the resources Super's getting because there was multiple assists in the kill feed. He probably glocked him. Yeah.
Kill. In San Francisco, Matt, they do what you asked for them. They get a second clean fight.
So what I'm trying to do there is pay off the way Matt's set up, right? Matt sort of says, and the problem is my, I meant well, chat. But what I said here was they did what you asked to get a pretty clean second fight. But is that really true? Maybe not. What I'm trying to say, like Matt obviously referred to them wanting to get a clean second fight, and that didn't happen. So what does Matt say to this?
Yeah, now they're going to pass Seoul Dynasty in terms of percentage. Let's see what Seoul's...
Okay, still important to mention this because I don't know about you guys, but there are times where I'm just not watching this. I just, like in the last few seconds, I haven't looked at this. It's not like the football where the score gets referenced all the time because we just don't have... Yeah, I mean, you didn't use transfer fund, but yeah. I mean, people can see the score, right? So I don't want to refer to it all the time, but the fact, like, I always think the crossing over point is so important to refer to. So Matt does it there really succinctly.
It's going to have to work with coming into the next fight. Valkyrie, Nano Boost, and the Bob from Fitz. So maybe you can use the Bob in test point. Put some point pressure on, get the Nano Boost on the gesture yet again, and just let him take space, allow you to get some of this high ground control.
So there you go. Win condition established. What do I do with this?
Tentatively, Prophet tries to take position here on top of the team.
So I'm trying to describe what Prophet's doing. I'm trying to add some value. And you know what, chat? He might be sat there not necessarily feeling tentative. But from here, it looks like he's being careful and checking that angle, right? So it's a small addition, but it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be additive.
He's looking for the Zenyatta. The one Violet has to know he's being hunted right now. That's a Storm Arrow headshot, and Violet's forced out of line of sight. Bob takes down Smurf, and Jester's on the point to deal with Super. This will be Seoul rapidly back in the driver's seat.
So there's not much to say there. It's a couple picks in this fight. Crucially, Violet can't do anything there to sort of punish the Roadhog positioning. The Hanzo forces him out, and then Super's dead. So we're not getting excited about this. There's still plenty of round to go. It's the first round. Trying to sort of pace ourselves. So I'm going to throw back to Matt. That's fine, because I want him to continue to delve into this discussion about win conditions and how they're achieved, and maybe how picks throw that out the window eventually.
So you cannot give up the high ground that easy if you're San Francisco. They allow Prophet to get into a position, shoot Violet from the side, they use the Bob. And now how does San Francisco go about trying to get some of this high ground back? Is I see Hanzo obviously able to wall climb, right? Can take some of this just stuff of his own ability. Say Prophet gets hit with a dynamite.
I mean, so stuff like this is going to happen all the time. And I think one thing I tweeted about during the finals is that this kill, obviously with res, it's not as important. What is important is how teams protect the mercy that comes in for a res. Because there's going to be like shock players like, I don't know where they're going to be, like here or through here or flanking here like Prophet did earlier to try and like punish this. So the most fascinating part about this matter was how people do something about this. Or how you protect your mercy. Or how you don't.
Right there, and they're going to use a shield.
Do I use any gestures for problems when I'm casting together? I used to had. Me and Matt don't really need to do them anymore. It's pretty instinctive.
In front of him, but Onz is able to take out Dangerous with the help of a damage boost.
So just under Matt. So I wasn't trying to take over here. This is something that I think that Wolf does really well for Seth. I didn't want to take over there. I wanted to let Matt keep talking, but I want to just go back and show you what we were talking about at that moment.
Just stuff of his own ability. Say Prophet gets hit with a dynamite there, and they're going to use his shield to get in front of him, but Onz.
So Matt referencing Onz getting killed. Remember what I said about the Mercy resurrecting? Well, guess who's coming home? It's Daddy. Striker going to be looking to try and capitalize on this. And like, what do you do? Like, how do you actually adequately protect this? What is creative? Just 180 bangarang, a sleep dart. It's not really good. So I don't want to take over here, but like, what is about to happen is very important.
Onz is able to take out Dangerous with the help of a damage boost.
Dangerous res from...
So like, he could have kept going, but he throws because he realizes there's a fight here. But I say it again. I'm like, that's a dangerous res.
From Toby there, Striker's able to take him down as he attempts to bring Fitz back into the fight. And this may well be a quick flip back in favor of the Shock, but Jester and Prophet have other ideas.
Now, like, here's the problem with this fucking meta is that like Prophet just headshot 2 people and killed them. Not on camera, of course. Can't really account for it. So, generally speaking, chat, a 6v4. It was actually even more than that. It was a 6v3 fight. You'd expect a team to win. You know, you'd expect that. Prophet gets 2 kills, Gesture finds Violet, and then things get a little bit difficult. So, I mean, like, no caster is going to be able to maybe avoid saying that that's a bad sign for Seoul. They lose 2 players here, but the fight isn't really over. So.
Ideas, Dragon Strike now, I don't think at all Smurf was ready for that one. He's forced to back around that central pillar. Smurf runs in a...
Again, that central pillar. Again, just try and make some reference to where they are. Striker killing Marvel here. This is an absolute shit show.
Prophet knocks him away, gets a health pack, and then runs him down. Overtime sees San Francisco with a player advantage.
So again, I want to reiterate the stakes here. So I said overtime sees San Francisco. It was with a player advantage until Striker finds that kill. So very quickly, you know, San Francisco up a player. We're in overtime. It sort of set stakes early.
Smurf was ready for that one. He's forced to...
They're up a player, but I didn't say it was a 5v4, 5v6, right? But as far as I've been following the kill feed and the players that are in proximity, not the players that are alive by looking up at the top of the screen, I'm referring to the proximity of the players, like the players that can actually get involved.
Back around that central pillar. Smurf runs into Prophet, knocks him away, gets a health pack, and then runs him down.
So, because very quickly, what I've done...
Dragon Strike now.
I'll try and point it out to you.
All Smurf was ready for that one. He's forced to back around that central pillar. Smurf runs into Prophet, knocks him away, gets a health pack, and then runs.
So I've used this screen. This is what is making me say that. And you know what? Like there could actually be someone here, but I don't think anyone is here in time. So I count. This is how I've done it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and that is what gives birth to this line about the Shock being a player up. It's a little risky, but I think I had reason to be confident of my maths at the time.
Runs him down. Overtime sees San Francisco with a player advantage. Striker
turns out I'm right, so that's fortunate. There are people coming, but
wants to try and force Fitz away, but he's booped off course by Toby. Eventually, the ladder is taken down, and San Francisco prevent an early round end.
So I mean, I don't want to say Toby again, so I just say the latter. You know what I mean? It just I'm trying to vary. I'm trying to really use a lot of variation in referring to people. Because otherwise, like with the amount I'm talking, I'm bound to repeat myself. With the speed that I'm talking. Like the faster you cast, the better you damn well better be at saying the same thing differently. Otherwise, slow down and stop repeating yourself.
And you mentioned the striker pick on a Toby. It's something we saw Seoul Dynasty do, and specifically Toby in the Philadelphia Fusion match. He was able to go for these risky reses and get them off time and time again. You're not going to be able to do that against the San Francisco Shock. The Shock here, they're loaded up, Mitch. They're going to have a Bob, double support ults.
Matt drops my name there. So that gives me like a 3, 4, 5 second warning that it's coming back to me. That, again, if I'm looking at something on the screen or some stats or another monitor, now I know that I'm about to catch the ball here.
Field, they're in a perfect position to take this first point.
Gravitic flex.
And there's almost, and we are, bear in mind, we are across, we are a long way away from each other as the crow flies. But as soon as I know he's throwing it back to me. So there's no gap at all. So we don't lose any of this momentum. And we are not in person. So I'm able to jump straight on in and we nail it.
Is available for Marvel. That could throw a spanner in the works, and he's going to let it go early. Smurf drops in, minefield put in front of Gesture, but he's able to dodge out on most of it. Marvel a little bit low, and Bob comes charging straight at him, bustling as he goes about his business. Gesture.
I tried for some alliteration there.
Falling to Smurf on the point now, and Arns is looking for a shot on Fitz, who's cannily keeping his head down, but the dynamite will give him a bit of a...
So again, what is Arns, so what I'm trying to do here is when these things happen, is I'm trying to give you the why, right? Or the how. How is this player behaving? Why are they behaving in such a way? Instead of just saying, Arns is... What am I saying about Arns right now? Bad casters right now are reading the kill feed and nothing else. And Violet killed the Bob. They probably just call Violet killing a Bob. Who cares? What I'm trying to do here is add a bit of context. This doesn't always work, by the way.
Straight at him, bustling as he goes about his business. Gesture falling to Smurf on the point now, and Arns is looking for a shot on Fitz, who's cannily keeping his head down, but the dynamite will give him a bit of a frizz problem.
So, obviously, Arns is trying to find the shot on Fitz, who's cannily. Obviously, he's just trying to, try and keep his head down, and the dynamite. I could just say he gets hit with the dynamite, but I'm trying to make some joke about his hair getting singed by it, or he's got a frizz problem, whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as I'm just not, as long as I'm adding something.
He'll be knocked off the edge now as Smurf tries to get to the high ground. He cannot interrupt the Resurrect on Marvel, though. Prophet is down. Art's playing from a safe angle now, and here's the roll towards Marvel once more. The Pulse Bomb safe, but Creative finds its mark, and now we're at 99-99, and the Dynasty are low on players. San Francisco strike back from behind in round 1, and Oasis is already off to the races.
I don't think I knew what I was going to say after Oasis is already. But I think I reached and I got it's after the races. It's fine. It's fine.
And they're going to need Seoul Dynasty. They're going to need to protect these supports a little bit better going up against Striker. You know, what Gesture's been really good at throughout the Grand Finals presented by IBM is going on these flanks of the Roadhog, putting the pressure on the opposing team's DPS.
By the way, any crunches out there? Pringles waving.
This is a read that I have to do. So I have a piece of paper with this read, but I'm like, oh man, like the sponsor read is so lame. So what I try and do is, you know, meme about it a little bit, right? So, you know, I just want to make it authentic. I don't want to just be like, make sure you head over to this channel and fucking just try and weave it in a bit more seamlessly.
Team's DPS. It's very difficult though for the Seoul Dynasty to protect their own.
By the way, any crunches out there? Pringles waving and Cheez It Grooves are giving you behind-the-scenes photos for today's match. Just tweet at Overwatch League with the hashtag CrunchTimeCam SEO for Seoul or hashtag CrunchTimeCam SFS for San Francisco to receive a photo of your team in real time. We connected like never before, ladies and gentlemen. 2020, and we're into the second round. It's Oasis City Center as San Francisco lead 1-0.
In the Shock come out here with Badeau maybe over towards the Pharah pick. Before Seoul Dynasty go with the Pharah, and against that the San Francisco Shock have answered, you know, using Violet on the Batiste. They don't come out though. They play the Hanzo yet again.
So the Violet Batiste, it was like it's very specific to countering the Pharah pick. I think, and look, you can't blame San Francisco for expecting Seoul to play Hanzo on this map, but for expecting them to play Pharah, sorry, but they don't.
Here against the Tracer pick.
Perhaps Violet anticipating, something a little bit different from Prophet. The Batiste has definitely been something that only he has really gone for.
So I want to mention that because maybe someone's tuning in like, why Batiste? Is Batiste bad, good? Like, why is it strange?
Violet can play as an off DPS, especially once he gets an amplification matrix online, and that's a big chunk of damage on towards Marvel, really putting pressure on the healing resource.
And do I even mention this Fitz kill here? I mean, we're going to see Smurf now. Maybe I have a way of tying it in, but I have to be quick.
Of Seoul as Smurf is able to deal with Fitz and then slink away with the...
All right, so just deal with it. I don't really know. I don't know how he killed Fitz. No one knows that. So, I mean, instead of saying he takes him down, casters use taking down a lot. I just said, you know, he got the kill and he's able to stay alive. He's surrounded by like 4 people, but you know, adaptive barrier is pretty good.
Shielding of that adaptive barrier.
And I mentioned that, right? That's why he gets away with it. So instead of just Smurf, you know, getting a kill and I move on, it's like he slinks away because of the durability that he gets with being surrounded by so many people. So that is there's the why, right? I want more than what. It has to be more than what as a caster because the viewer doesn't need you to tell them the what they know. They can see and perceive and understand. Maybe what they will be less likely to do is create causal links or understand the motivation for a player's behavior or the ramifications or consequences of a certain event happening and how that it can be extrapolated over the course of a series or even just the map.
Just look at
when you guys are casting, we see what you see. The same damn thing, especially this year. We don't have a setup like we used to have at the Blizzard Arena where we actually had a top-down map. We see the same damn thing as you. Nothing. I do, in fairness, I have a stats monitor. I did all this bullshit to make sure I still had the stats available to me, and I was holding that in a tablet. Most of the time, though, I was looking at the game.
how much pressure they're putting on the supports here. Smurf and Striker just going to the high ground and just getting these picks, and there's no protection there.
See, like, so again, I come in under Matt with the oh my. He never does that to me. That's fine. Matt is just the kind of guy that doesn't like to feel like he's interrupting, even though he wouldn't be interrupting me. It would just be, it's just not his style. But I'll do it. Don't worry. I posted a photo on Twitter of how I stand. I actually sometimes have my arms behind my back because it brings my shoulders back. And then I do this weird power stance. Hold on, I'll try it. Like, It's like this. Like I put my leg up. It would be very sexually aggressive, but it's just me in the room, right? It's fine. Or when Ashley walks by and I give her the old, what's going on? But this is, I don't know why. I just feel like I can use my hip flexors to just try and push my diaphragm out a little bit. So, a foghorn leghorn, exactly. Jeez. There you go. So I really just want to, because I need to like really tighten my diaphragm up, especially to squeeze out some bits. So yeah, it's like a power stance. It's like a lead guitarist stands with his legs like wide ass open. I don't know.
Fly in here just to kind of contest Guardian Angels with his teammate, but no chance for a res. Really clean fight here for the San Francisco Shock.
So what Super was able to do late in that fight, Matt, he 8 final blows to 2 deaths, and we talked about Gesture being a prolific finder of kills. He's only found 3 so far.
So, I mean, 8-3 in final blows of the Roadhogs is really early, but I want to keep checking in with the audience on how that Super versus Gesture matchup's going, because we set that narrative up at the start of the game. Now, do those stats mean a ton? I mean, I don't think you can't really use them to infer if one of the players is better than another, but you can absolutely say, hey, the Roadhogs aren't finding kills here. And we can sort of discuss why that may be. So it's still relevant, even if it's not the most powerful. I'm not going for deep cuts of statistical data,
Super is outstripping him in a big way, but that is just, that's preposterous. Prophet finds a headshot from around the corner and staves quite comfortably Smurf away from him.
He's always there when they need an answer, Prophet. He's able to pick up 2 even when the M-Matrix is dropped.
Okay, dude.
Shot into Ants. Fitz will finish it off as Seoul move in, try and take the point back. It is not a given they're going to flip this, though. This point is really easy to contest.
Love that Matt mentions that, because the amount of ridiculous, like, drawn-out stall fights that happen here. And if San Francisco can get back, if they get back here, God, I mean, it may never end. There's remember Mercy? I think Mop just pops Valk. Yeah, he pops Valk, so you know they're coming back.
Have a Valkyrie in play here for Mop, but he's thinking about pulling the blaster. I saw him eyeing Fitz off like a bit of a snack. He thinks better of it though, and now that a body grenade is thrown at the San Francisco Shock, Super cannot stay alive, and Smurf gets hit with an accretion. Super will be resurrected, and that is a lot of health brought back onto the battlefield. The same is done for Gesture though, and the numbers still favor the Seoul Dynasty, but for how long? Arns finds a big headshot on Marvel, and Gesture, despite having plenty of support here from the Nano Boost, loses the main healer in Creative, and this whole hog would be suicidal to use.
So, there's a ton of kill feed you can read there, right? Right, there's like there's plenty going on, but I want to try and play to the person that's on the camera right now. Like, I think Arnt's got 2 headshots, right? That's kind of what ends the fight. The fact, first of all, this is just egregious. This is just fucking disgusting what San Francisco have done. But we're on board with Gesture.
Alive, and Smurf gets hit with an accretion.
So talk about Smurf dying.
Super will be resurrected.
Super gets resurrected.
Brought back onto the battlefield. The same is done for.
So I want to mention when Roadhog gets resurrected, it's like how much? It's like how much he heals 300. It's damage reduction of 50%. So it's like 1,050 health that's brought back onto the battlefield, give or take for a reduction or Discord orb or whatever. But it's a lot. So I always like to mention that, because we never think in terms of like total HP, and sometimes it's relevant. I just mentioned that there.
Gesture though, and the numbers still favor the Seoul Dynasty, but for how long?
So I mentioned the numbers were favoring Seoul, which was true, but it's hard to see from this perspective. If I had a top-down map, I could tell you this much easier. But for how long, right? So I ask a question. It's obviously not intended to be answered, but it does sort of tell you where we're going next.
Arns finds a big headshot on Marvel, and Gesture despite.
So obviously Arns. So I say Arns hits a big headshot on Marvel, and then I could just talk about him headshotting Creative, but I don't want to fucking read the kill feed. So there's another story. There's another something that I want to mention, and maybe I can weave this kill of so maybe I can sort of do something with this kill without having to just read the kill feed, right?
Having plenty of support here from the Nano Boost, loses the main.
So we go back. First of all, I mentioned Gesture, despite having Nano Boost in play, he was given a nano there, loses his main healer. Now, I think in terms of throughput potential with the body grenade at this point in the fight, maybe like okay, it's the flex healer that dies, or the flex support, but with Toby likely maybe pocketing a Prophet or Fitz, I refer to him as the main healer here.
Creative, and this whole hog would be suicidal to you.
So I get to mention that kill on creative, but I don't do it in a normal way. I just say, despite all the help he's had with the nano boost, he's now lost his main healer, and going for a whole hog here would be suicidal. So, I mean, I'm not editorializing. I don't think it's like a stretch to say like you shouldn't be whole hogging when you have no supports. You know what I mean? But we can talk a little bit, and maybe that sort of influences his thought process. Some people might, especially people that don't watch a ton of Overwatch, might be like, well, why didn't he use his whole hog? Like, why didn't he use his ultimate? You know, well, okay, well, you don't want to use it there, obviously. So yeah, that's what I'm working with. But I can mention that, you know, it's inadvisable in a way that doesn't sound like I'm trying to give a literal pro player advice.
Onto it two, Striker with another, Striker into the back line, takes out Toby. Like I mentioned, it was not a given that Seoul Dynasty, off of those 2 picks from Profit, were going to be able to take the point. San Francisco Shock gets back in. They hold on. 80% and counting here for the Shock. You'll have a minefield. This will definitely make it much harder to take the point as well. This is looking really good for San Francisco. This is about as good of a start they could have had.
Devastating for Seoul Dynasty to have lost that fight despite starting so far ahead. Arnt's incredibly wary of threats from all directions here, and Smurf runs into a target he'd much rather leave in his dust.
Right, so I mean, that's maybe the way that I said that kind of gives you an idea of how Smurf feels about running into Gesture there. You know, I try and be a little creative, but obviously Smurf does not want to run into a damage boosted Gesture in a dark alley at night.
Tries to get away, but he can't. Gesture found him with the hook, and that's the Dynasty beginning this fight with a player advantage. Gesture has that whole hog he saved from earlier now.
Remember now, he saved that whole hog from earlier. I mentioned it, that it would be suicidal to use it. So a way of paying that off would be now if Gesture did something gainful with this whole hog. But I want to just refer to it. It's not callback humor, chat, but it is. I am actually referring back to things that I've said, or as you heard in the last round, that Matt has said, right? So I do want to pay off things that we set up.
Fermented, matured to perfection. He almost gets run down.
I'll wax a bit poetic about it, but, you know, that's fine.
And awfully fast. Striker gets an uncanny amount of shots on towards his head. He's forced away. Here's the gravitic flux from Marvel now.
So I leave that. I can put a pin in sort of, you know, Gestures forced away and go and do something else, right? You can do it without looking like you're being forced. Even though I am being forced to talk about something else, I take a breath and the pace isn't too, you know, back and forth. It feels more natural that I'm just sort of moving on to something else.
Looking for support, I dare say, but Profit, he gets gunned down. Striker finds him in the Discord orb from Violet, really helps get the work done. And that's a pulse bomb thrown in by Striker once more. Now Jesty goes for the whole hog, but they've lost Marvel. It has to be a Desperate Resurrect here from Toby, but he's taken down just after. Creative may be back in the fight, but it's not going to be enough. And the San Francisco turn up in a sensational way in map number.
The who? Damn it, dude! I was almost spot on. Yeah, the Shock. Obviously, the San Francisco, like, I don't know.
Resurrect here from Toby.
So, okay, so this is a climax for the round. You'll notice that a lot of my casting hasn't actually been that rap god sort of style. I think sparingly it can really help. Here, it's like a lot of things are happening at once. I can't catch them all, but I can still, you know, imply that there's a lot of stuff happening without talking about all the things that are happening, because you'll notice that my pace increased, also my pitch increased. So I'm using 2 facets of my voice outside of volume. So for me, it's like volume, pace, pitch, tone, all that. So I'm using 2 facets. I'm actually changing those to try and line up with the fever pitch that I believe as a caster the game is reaching.
The Dynasty beginning this fight with a player advantage. Jester has that whole hog he saved from earlier now. It's fermented, matured to perfection.
Or he just didn't want to use it. I mean, that's fine.
Gets run down awfully fast. Striker gets an uncanny amount of shots on towards his head. He's forced away. Here's the gravitic flux from Marvel now. He's looking for support, I dare say, but Profit, he gets gunned down. Striker finds him in the Discord orb from Violet, really helps get the work done.
Now, it wasn't Striker's kill. It was Violet's kill, as per the kill feed. But I wasn't looking at the kill feed. It looked like Striker killed him.
And that's a pulse bomb thrown in by Striker once more. Now Jesty goes for the whole hog, but they've lost Marvel. It has to be a Desperate Resurrect here from Toby, but he's taken down just after. Creative may be back in the fight, but it's not going to be enough. And the San Francisco turn up in a
Fuck!
sensational way in map number
Ah!
1. Once more, taking Oasis away from the Dynasty.
All right, so there was map number 1. Not a long map, so it's not. But we still spent an hour talking about it, right? Because there was a ton of stuff that was worth mentioning there. A couple small slips, but I didn't expect to be perfect for this overnight broadcast. At least we've sort of done a little bit of an intro to the game, and yeah, map 2 obviously, hopefully, is where I sort of hit my stride a bit more, and some of those smaller errors don't creep in.